Hello, Nomad Sculpt, and this video is about clothes and a few tips. This is my personal workflow. There are 100 ways to do this, but maybe it helps a little bit. So here are clothes. So let's start with a new scene. So I bring in a new character, and so let's choose this one. I move it to the origin, and I delete the rest here because I don't need it. So in this base mesh here, I scale it a little bit, and yeah, let's create a pose. Oh, so mm, maybe she's on the run. So something like this. Okay. So let's place here also the feet. Okay. So let's create a shirt. So this mesh here has separate parts. So first I select the whole mesh here and I create a clone of this mesh. So, and this mesh I remesh. So maybe like this. So here in solo view we have now our second mesh, and this mesh we can use. Sorry, what happened? Okay, I pressed undo. So there are two options. First, you can use here the mask tool and mask the whole thing, or you can use cell mask and mask here parts for the shirt. And yeah, something like this here. And don't, yeah, it's not important here for the, oh man, these parts are, you don't have to be careful for this. So extract the shell or the mask, shell thickness 0, no smoothing, and extract only this rough mesh here. So here in the material settings, I turn the colored backface on. So here the auto functions, you see here now the back side of the mesh. This is only a flat 2D mesh. And the important thing about this is you could use mask shell thickness, so like this here. So when you sculpt with a mesh with a shell thickness, there are problems when you do clothes. So it's the last step. Okay. So I use now the trim tool, and for the trim tool there's no hole filling active, so no hole filling. This is a little bit different with version 1.84, so it's a beta update here, so this is version 1.85. So yeah, but it works the same way. So let's trim here the arms here a little bit. So here we have to change the filter here, front facing vertex only off, and like this. So then the shirt looks like this here. The next thing is, here I clear the mask here, and now I have to find my shirt. Where is it? Here. This is my shirt. So this mesh here, I think I hide. And this mesh here I give a different color. So now our shirt is active, and we need an offset of the shirt. So you have to create a new tool. So I create it with you. We need the inflate tool, and create a copy or a clone of the inflate tool, and rename it as inflate scale tool, and change here the settings here. For the stroke type, choose lock radius option here. The alpha is okay. The fall off, a flat fall off, and the filter here, turn off front facing vertex only, here this checkbox. And for the pressure, we don't need pressure. And then save here the settings, save. So when you use now your brush tool here and pick the mesh and drag your pencil outside, so you create an offset. And you can change here the intensity with the intensity slider, and so you can change here the distance of the offset. So now you have a nice smooth or a nice offset of the body, and your shirt has a little bit a distance to the body. The next thing here is we have to flatten here the mesh here around and make it smooth, everything. So it's possible to use here the dynamic topology here for this. Enable the dynamic topology, and you can change now the mesh density. So work low poly. So, and for this you need the round all brush. The round all brush, there's a tutorial how to create it. So now dynamic topology is active. We don't need the relax option here, so only smoothing, and brush along here with your tool. So you can change here the detail like this. So now you have a new topology. So we use a little bit a lower topology like this. And now you can use tools like the clay tool or inflate tool. I use now clay. And when you brush here on the mesh, so you create a little bit a offset, or so. Because the fabric has a little bit of a distance to the skin, and the lower the mesh density, the easier is this to achieve. Yeah. So you brush a little bit. And you can change here the intensity a little bit to have more control, like this. And you see here, the edges stay sharp. So when you work with with a mesh with a shell thickness, you get problems with your borders of the mesh. So we can use also the smooth tool and relax a little bit the mesh. So no problem. So when we need more topology for the folds or something, so I play here a little bit with smoothing and so on. And a little bit clay. So it's also possible here when your shirt is too short, for example, so you can here use the cell mask, use the lasso tool and mask here a part, and use the gizmo. Here on the left side there's a line function, so you can scale it here a little bit and move it in the direction you want. And so we can blur also the mask and use the move tool. So for this here, for this edge here, let's look of smoothing works. So here for the borders, we can create nice smooth things here, clay a little bit to bring it outside. And smooth. So now we can clear the mask again. This is also a little bit different to version 1.84. So now we can relax and so on. So this is a shirt. And maybe we want now a skirt. So I select here the solo view, and for something like a skirt or the trousers, you can do the same thing with a mask. So I use here the cell mask, and I mask here this part. And here in the settings, I set a shell thickness to 0. Here no smoothness, and I extract this shell. For the main mesh, I clear the mask. So this is our part we get now. So the shirt I hide at the moment. And let's use this one. So here in solo view, I mask again the top part. So I use the cell mask again and mask this here. And now it's possible with the gizmo to scale the mesh here. So maybe we need a skirt like this here, or a little bit longer. So you can use the gizmo and bring it rough in position. So something like this here. And the next step is we need our topology back. So when we use here the solo view and we clear the mask, and now let's use the smooth tool. And here's the relaxing option. So use a bigger brush and brush over your mesh to bring back the topology. You can use also the round all tool with the relax option. So a higher intensity and brush a few times so that the mesh becomes again more like this. The next step is again here you can use dynamic topology and use a decrease the mesh density here and use round all or so something like this here. So here you see now your mesh, and now it's possible to use the move tool. So you can use here the move, and I check here the move tool. So if silhouette is active, here this checkbox here, silhouette, you can use it for folds and so on. So, but at the moment I don't need it. So I change a little bit between smoothing and moving. Sorry, this was the wrong position. I think we use here clay. So let's brush here with a clay brush to bring the skirt in front. A little bit more intensity. So, and here you can also use the clay tool. Change a little bit intensity. So now I think it's time to increase the poly count a little bit. Use the round all tool and give the whole thing a little bit more and for the folds and so on, you can change here at the left side to sub function. At the moment the clay tool is active, so Let's create here some folds. And I change back to the normal direction. And again sub. So yeah, it looks nice. So it's also possible to use a move brush and so on. You can do everything with this mesh what you want. So play with it. So I give it a little bit of other color here, and I check if the face group. No, it's not active. Maybe like this. So when you're done with your skirt and so on, then it's possible to give the mesh a shell thickness. So this is the last step. So tap and mask it. And here you can create a shell thickness in the negative direction maybe. And let's test smoothing. And now let's extract the mesh. So let's see the whole thing here, what happened. Oh, I have to go in the other direction. Let's test it without smoothing and not so much. So this is here then the mesh with a shell thickness. So here it's then possible to use multi-resolution and so on. So like this here. And where's our shirt? So yeah, let's go back to the shirt. And you see here, we need a offset here. Let's use clay tool and brush here. So now you see your mesh comes through the other mesh. So it's also possible again to use the inflate brush here to create an offset. And I smooth it again a little bit. So now I use a move brush. Okay. So and the next thing is here, if you want to change here the neck here a little bit, we can use the trim tool. And here in the trim tool settings, use here the front facing vertex only option. So this checkbox here. And now I use the polygon. Symmetry is off, this is okay. So let's trim this here. And I think this one here, so when you got such problems here with this small mesh part, you can press here separate and then select this part and delete it. So now the mesh is correct again. And for this edge or this border here, we can now use the smooth tool. So you can create here a very smooth edge when you use the smoothing. And this works only with such a flat mesh here, with no shell thickness. So for the dynamic topology, enable it again, change the mesh density, and brush one time with a round all brush over your mesh to change it. So if you want a quad mesh here, so it's also possible. So select the mask tool, mask your part, and use here the options for close holes. So here you can set the detail and press close holes. So now when you press here voxel remesh, so you can change here the voxel density or the resolution and remesh it. So now you get here a quad remeshed mesh, and it's possible with because it's masked, you can now set the thickness to 0 and split the mesh. So I hope it worked. So this part here we don't need, so we can delete it. And the other parts here with the rough edges here is no problem. You can use the smooth tool and smooth the edges again. So like this. Or you use here for the splitting, here the mask splitting, you can try it with smoothness and maybe borders only. Let's test it. So borders only should work. So, but the smoothness, yeah, sharp border, split. Yeah, sharp border is a correct option. So now we can delete this thing and we have here sharp borders and a quad remeshed thing. Now also smoothing works to smooth out the edges a little bit. So, and for this we can also use again a little bit the inflate tool here to create a nice offset. So check your mesh here, everything where the other mesh shines through, we can brush a little bit. Yeah, that's refining. So yeah, and if you want a shell thickness here, you can mask the mesh and extract it with a shell thickness. So now you have here a mesh with a thickness. But this is the last step as always. So that's it. Have fun with sculpting. Ciao.